What is up, everyone? My name is Jack Southall, back again with another WrestleMania review, and today I will be reviewing WrestleMania 2. After the incredible success of the first WrestleMania, Vince McMahon decided to do a sequel, as what most people do when something is successful. They make a sequel of it, especially in this day and age. But Vince wanted to go one step further. He decided to not just have it in New York, but to also have it in Chicago and Los Angeles. He wanted WrestleMania 2 to take place in 3 separate locations, with 1 hour going to a certain state, basically, which sounds good on paper, but when it comes to actual technicality, it didn't exactly work amazingly. I mean, it wasn't awful or anything, but it felt like at times some of the people didn't know what they were doing, or like everything was a bit all over the place, but they managed to keep it together okay. But there were some moments where they kind of didn't really know what they were doing. I mean, it was in 1986 as well, so it was a bit crazy at the time that they actually managed to pull off something as big as that. So we'll kick off and talk about the first hour, which took place at the Nassau Coliseum in Long Island, New York. And it starts off with Vince McMahon saying the famous line, "Welcome to WrestleMania," which has been used in just about every video package for WrestleMania in the last God knows how many years. And he introduces his co-commentator for the night, Susan St. James, who was an actress on the Kate and Allie TV show at the time. And all I have to say about Susan St. James on commentary is, uh-oh. Oh my god, if you guys have seen WrestleMania 2, every time a heel would do something bad, or like the heel would get the upper hand, she would always go, uh-oh. Like, I actually did the counting for this. I counted the amount of uh-ohs she said throughout the show. 45 times. 45 times in the span of 1 hour she went, uh-oh. Like, it was fine the first few times you said it, but not when it's 45 times. But God bless Susan St. James. I mean, it was her first time on commentary, you know, and she said that she'd never seen anything like this before, so yeah, there you go. We had Ray Charles singing America the Beautiful with, it had a bunch of American stuff show up on the screen, and it ended with Hulk Hogan with fireworks behind him, because you don't get more American than that. Ray Charles did a great job, in my opinion. He did a very good job. Ray Charles he's a legend. I mean, of course he's going to knock it out of the park. And before any of the matches even begun, the main event, every state had their big match for their state, and the big match for New York was Mr. T versus Roddy Piper in the boxing match. And Roddy Piper got interviewed before, like a few minutes before the match, and he said that he grew out his hair so people can tell the difference between him and Mr. T. So a bit of hidden racism somewhere in there, and how he has the best coach in the world and all that. And then he goes on to say, if Mr. T can knock him out in the boxing match, then he will not only retire from boxing, he will retire from professional wrestling. So he just added some big stakes to that match. And yeah, I like how he mentioned that, because it makes the boxing match a lot more exciting. So as for the opening match of the entire show, we get Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, who is now a babyface, taking on the magnificent Don Muraco with Mr. Fuji in his corner. And wow, not exactly a great way to kick off WrestleMania 2, as it ended with a double countout. Great. Yeah, not like, this is seriously how you open WrestleMania 2? Seriously, this isn't an episode of Raw, mate. This is WrestleMania 2. Raw didn't even exist in 86, so yeah, this may have been an early sign of things to come when it comes to Raw booking. But after the match, Orndorff tried to use a chair on Muraco, but the ref kind of calmed him down. So yeah, so much for babyface Paul Orndorff. I think he turned heel later on that year and had a bit of a feud with Hulk Hogan. And Mr. T got his interview spot, saying how he doesn't like doing a lot of talking, how his fist will do the talking for him, and he'll do Piper dirty after cutting Haiti Kid's hair, like him against his will. So, yeah, on like an old WWF show in the build-up to this match, Roddy Piper and Cowboy Bob Orton on Piper's Pit, they took Haiti Kid and against his will shaved his head like Mr. T, basically. And Haiti Kid's like arms are kicking and all that. It was pretty mean, but also really funny as well. We get the first title match of the night for the Intercontinental Championship, the Macho Man, Randy Savage, with Miss Elizabeth, who looked gorgeous, as usual, defending the title against George the Animal Steele. And basically the whole story of this match was George was constantly getting distracted by Miss Elizabeth's beauty, because I think they were friends or something like that. So anytime Animal Steele would like stare at Elizabeth and want to be friendly to her, Macho Man would just attack him from behind any chance he gets. And Macho Man actually grabbed a bouquet of flowers and just hit him with it, but then Steele just grabs him and then hits him with it because he's an animal. And like he rips up the elbow pads and pushes the stuffing into Macho Man's face. And Savage ends up hitting an elbow drop from the top rope. But George the Animal Steele kicks out at one. But Macho Man ends up retaining by pinning him using the ropes as leverage. So nice little heel tactic from Randy Savage. And poor Animal Steele getting screwed over. So yeah. After that, we had Jake the Snake Roberts taking on George Wells, and I thought this was a nice little showcase match for Jake Roberts' character. They were getting over how much of a cold character he kind of was. I mean, Jake the Snake Roberts is one of the best in this era, in my opinion. He hits the classic DDT on George Wells and wins the match, and then of course he grabs out Damien from his bag and he wraps it around George Wells' neck. Like, that's just he was such a cold character and such a pretty evil character at that time. I know he would be a babyface the majority of the time, but this was when I feel like he was a heel then. And yeah, seeing a character that time when everyone is so colorful and over the top, he was a more realistic, well, not realistic, but more of a creepy kind of guy. So it was that nice little balance for this type of era. After that, we had, oh, Jesus Christ, the boxing match between Roddy Piper and Mr. T. Piper had Cowboy Bob Orton and Lou Duva, which I think he was a boxing coach or some shit like that, in his corner. And in Mr. T's corner was boxing legend Smoking Joe Frazier and Haiti Kid. Joan Rivers was the special guest ring announcer, and the guest judges are Daryl Dawkins, who was a New York Nets NBA player at the time, Cab Calloway, who was a jazz singer, and G. Gordon Liddy, or whatever his fucking name is, who was a lawyer for the Watergate scandal, which, why would you want to bring him in as a celebrity? I don't get. And the guest timekeeper is Herb. I don't know who the fuck Herb is, but you know what? Herb is my favorite person ever now. This match was just shit. It just was. They were trying to throw fake punches at each other and all that. Like, even Piper himself has said in interviews that it was the worst match of his entire career. Like, Mr. T didn't want to really cooperate. Like, at that point, Piper just gave up giving a shit. He threw the stool at Mr. T. Like, Bob Orton even threw water at him. And at the end, just Piper was like, nah, fuck this. He picks up Mr. T and just body slams him. And Mr. T wins by disqualification as the people tried to separate the two. So, yeah, poor New York. They got that as a main event. My God. And as well, why would you have a boxing match at Wrestle fucking Mania? That makes no sense to me. Why wouldn't you have Mr. T and Roddy Piper in just a normal wrestling match? Like, I felt like it would have been much better. I mean, Mr. T, he can wrestle fairly well in this era. I mean, he did last year. Why not this year in 1986? But Oh well, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here. Who gives a shit? The second hour took place at the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago, Illinois. The commentators were Gorilla Monsoon, Mean Gene Okerlund, and Kathy Lee Crosby, who I think was an actress as well. Start off with the Women's Championship match between the Fabulous Moolah and Velvet McIntyre. And as soon as the bell rings, Moolah just goes after Velvet and hits her with a really shitty clothesline. Velvet dives from the top but completely misses. Moolah pins her for the win despite McIntyre's foot being on the rope and wins in a minute-and-a-half match. Cool. Good on you, Moolah, you piece of shit. The reason why I call Moolah as a piece of shit, if you do your research, there was some stuff about her and like pimping out some of the divas, well, women at the time. So yeah, do your research on that bit. We had a flag match between Nikolai Volkoff with Classy Freddy Blassie in his corner, and he's taking on Corporal Kirchner, which was some G.I. Joe knockoff character. And whoever got to win the match got to raise their flag, with Nikolai with the Soviet Union and Corporal Kirchner with the US flag. And of course, the American Corporal Kirchner wins after Blassie tries to throw the cane at Volkoff so he can hit it on him. But while the ref was down, but Kirchner caught it instead and hit him in the back to win the match. So yeah, this match existed. He held up the US flag. The Americans were happy. Yay. Then we get to the, I guess, the main event match for Chicago, even though this wasn't technically the last match for Chicago. It was the most built up out of all of them. So it was the WWF and NFL 20-man Battle Royal. The NFL players that took place in this were Jimbo Covert, who was on the Chicago Bears at the time, Harvey Martin, which was a former Dallas Cowboys, Ernie Holmes, which was a former Pittsburgh Steelers, Bill Frelick from the Atlanta Falcons, Russ Francis from the San Francisco 49ers, and William Refrigerator Perry from the Chicago Bears. Got a big ovation from the crowd. And he even got inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2006. And the WWF guys were Pedro Morales, who was a former WWF champion, one of the first ever WWF champions. Not the first, but one of the first. Mr. USA, Tony Atlas, Ted Arcidi, who was just a big Roddy Magoo, Danny Spivey, Hillbilly Jim, King Tonga, or Kid Tonga, the Iron Sheik, the Killer Bees were in there, Big John Studd, the Hart Foundation, the Living Legend Bruno Sammartino, and Andre the Giant. The guest timekeeper was Clara Pella, who was some old lady from a Where's the Beef Wendy's ad. And the guest referees were Ed Too Tall Jones from the Dallas Cowboys, and a former Chicago Bears player, and the man with the most unfortunate name in the world, Dick Butkus. It's so stupid. I'm sorry. Who the fuck would name their son? I mean, the last name Butkus is tragic enough as it is. What kind of terrible parents would name their son, alright, now we know his name's Butkus, let's name him Dick. Do you want your son to get bullied at school? Oh my god. I feel bad for this guy, but it's just an awful name. But besides that, might as well talk about the Battle Royal. William Perry got eliminated by Big John Studd later on in the match. But what I loved is William Perry went over to shake Big John Studd's hand, like, oh yeah, good match. And he was basically like, psych! And Big John Studd got eliminated and got pissed, and rightfully so. Hart Foundation eliminated Russ Francis and went to double team on Andre. But Andre managed to fought back and eliminated both guys to win the Battle Royal. So yeah, congrats to Andre. I mean, he was the biggest man in the match, so it kind of made sense for him to win the Battle Royal. After that was the WWF Tag Team title match. It was between the Dream Team, made up of Greg the Hammer Valentine and Brutus Beefcake, pre-Barber, with Luscious Johnny Valiant in their corner, taking on the British Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith and the Dynamite Kid. In their corner was Captain Lou Albano and the godfather of heavy metal, Ozzy Osbourne. I believe he had just released an album the month or two before. I forgot which one it was. but I think it was called The Ultimate Sin, I think it was called. So British Bulldogs, by the way, they were just juiced up, man, like jacked up in this match, and they worked really good in this. This was probably the best match. I mean, the Dream Team worked very well as heels in this match, and British Bulldogs just looked so smooth. Like, they had one of the best tag teams in history. Hands down, man. And Valentine and Beefcake, you know, they were working on the shoulder of Davey Boy throughout the match, which was very smart. That was smart heels back in the day. Not chicken shit heels, that was smart. And Davey Boy rams Valentine's head into Dynamite Kid's head and pins him to win the tag team titles. So a very interesting way. Dynamite Kid, I guess, sacrificing himself to win the tag team titles, which was pretty cool. So, yeah, British Bulldogs winning the WWF Tag Team titles was great to see. Fun match overall, and Ozzy Osbourne right after that was saying, British Bulldogs forever, and asked if he would be in their corner again. So, oh, yeah, definitely for many years to come. Never did. Never did. But we move on to hour 3 at the Los Angeles Memorial Sports Arena in Los Angeles, California. Jesse the Body Ventura, Lord Alfred Hayes, and holy tits, Elvira was on commentary as well. She was like this vampire, really sexy vampire chick that used to host horror movies on like a little syndicated block on television. The first match for the Los Angeles portion of the show was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Hercules Hernandez. Ricky had just gotten his dragon gimmick, which was pretty cool, and it was obvious who the better wrestler was in this match. Ricky, he just made Hercules look bad. I mean, okay, to be fair, Hercules wasn't that bad, but when you compare him to someone like Ricky Steamboat, like, there is no comparison. Hercules did try to get some momentum in the match, but Ricky just ends up chopping him a few times, clotheslines him, and Hercules did try to gorilla press him twice and dives off the top, but Steamboat blocks it with his knees. But Ricky ends up hitting a flying crossbody from the top to get the win. Nice little match for Ricky the Dragon Steamboat to look great, and let's just say next year he's going to get a match that makes him look really, really good. After that, fuck's sake. Adorable Adrian Adonis with Jimmy Hart in his corner versus Uncle Elmer. This match was a drizzling shit. Adonis won. Cool, move on. After that was the Funk Brothers, Terry and Hoss, with Jimmy Hart in their corner taking on Tito Santana, Arriba, and the Junkyard Dog. Once again, a very fun match. The tag matches on this show are really good. Terry Funk was selling Junkyard's offense so well. I love the Funks in this match. They were the rough and tough wrestling type of guys that would do whatever they can to just beat the shit out of you, but also put on a good match as well. Jimmy Hart kicked Santana in the gut when he was on the outside, but then Junkyard chases him off. And then there was a bit in the match where just chaos happened. All 4 guys were going after each other. Like, JYD even slammed Terry onto a table. He didn't put him through a table, but slammed him onto a table, which at the time would have been pretty crazy. But how the match ended, Terry used Jimmy Hart's megaphone to hit JYD while the referee wasn't seeing to get the win. So yeah, good ending. It makes them look like really scoundrel heels for the Funks, and yeah, puts a bit of sympathy on Junkyard Dog and Tito Santana for getting screwed over, basically. Then we get to the main event, which was a steel cage match for the WWF World Heavyweight title. It was the immortal Hulk Hogan, brother, defending against King Kong Bundy with Bobby the Brain Heenan in their corner. And the whole build-up for this match was pretty simple. On Saturday night's main event in Phoenix, Arizona, after Hogan had a match, King Kong Bundy went to attack Hogan from behind when he had Heenan held up in the air. He had a bit of assist from Don Muraco as well, and Don Muraco was holding Hogan against his will while King Kong Bundy went for like some avalanches to Hogan's back. He hit like 3 of them in the corner, and then he hit a splash on his abdomen, and then another splash on his back, which presumably cost Hogan a herniated disc in his back. And then they cut to a little interview with Mean Gene with Hulk Hogan working out. Hillbilly Jim is with him. His doctor's there as well. And, you know, he's pretty much saying that he's going to beat King Kong Bundy and overcome the odds, that kind of stuff. And this man, with a hurt back, is doing pull-ups with like a 300-pound dumbbell on a chain around his neck, and he's just doing pull-ups like that just to show how strong he is and how ready he is to kick King Kong Bundy's ass. So that was really cool. Hulk Hogan was a fantastic babyface in this match. Obviously, Hogan's one of the greatest babyfaces of all time, if not the greatest babyface of all time. You may say Austin, but Hogan was the OG babyface, in my opinion. The guest ring announcer for this match was Tommy Lasorda, or whatever his name is, from Los Angeles Dodgers. He was the coach for the Los Angeles Dodgers at the time. The guest timekeeper was Ricky Stroder, or whatever. I'm getting names fucked up really badly in this review. He was a star of the Silver Spoons TV show, and the guest referee was Robert Conrad, who was a famous actor at the time. The match was very fun. This was a very good way to end WrestleMania 2, in my opinion. Hogan and Bundy just went after each other like almost as soon as the bell rung. Hogan had a big head of steam going after Bundy with some hits, some chops, just ran him into the cage. He even got him busted open at one point during the match. It was funny because you can clearly see Bundy's trying to blade at one point, and you can just see Heenan covering him up so that you couldn't see him do the blade job. Good on you, Heenan. He is an absolute pro when it comes to just the wrestling business and stuff. And Hogan's selling of the hurt ribs were fantastic in this match. Like Bundy, he would like ram him into the cage, like ram his back into the cage, or hit some scoop slams on him, and he would just sell that like death. He even like ripped off the tape around his abdomen and was like choking him with it. Like Bundy was just brutal in there. And Hogan tried to body slam Bundy at one point, but he buckles under the weight and he just crashes down on Hogan. And several times throughout the match, Bundy tried to escape through the door, but Hogan, every time he'd try, Hogan would try and stop him. And Bundy goes for like an avalanche in the corner and running splash, but that was when Hogan starts to hulk up and all that. He scoop slams Bundy, which gets a big ovation from the crowd. He hits a leg drop on him, and he tries to escape the ring. Although Bundy and Heenan tried to stop him from going over the cage, it ended up failing, and Hogan escaped and won the match. And as soon as he won, he looked at Bobby Heenan and chased him into the ring, beat him up for a little bit, threw him into the cage, all that kind of stuff. And Heenan just bumped like a boss in there. Like, he sold that so well. Like, Bobby Heenan selling is just so great, man. He has to be one of the best of all time. But Hogan ends up celebrating in the ring, and Jesse Ventura would say, "Oh, you know, one day Hogan is gonna have to step into the ring with me. See how tough he is." Which would kind of be a theme, like a running theme through WrestleManias or just pay-per-views in general. Because anytime Hogan would win, Jesse Ventura would always say, "Oh, at next year's WrestleMania, I'm gonna beat Hogan," and all that. He never did. He never had a match. I'm surprised they never built up a Jesse Ventura Hulk Hogan match. That actually would have been really cool. But that's going to end the show there. My match of the night, personally, would have to go to the tag team title match. I thought the British Bulldogs worked very well. I thought the Dream Team were very smart heels in the match. And seeing British Bulldogs, one of the greatest tag teams of all time, win the tag titles, nothing wrong with that. And also, Ozzy Osbourne gives it a bit of a heads up as well. How I'm going to rate this show, overall, I didn't like it as much as WrestleMania 1, so I'm probably going to give this show a Bret Hart rating of 4 out of 10. Just, I mean, there were some good matches, and like the tag matches were good, the main event was very fun, but the boxing match was shit, the Adrian Adonis and Uncle Elmer match was shit, and the rest of the matches weren't exactly that spectacular as well, so overall, like a bit of a disappointment compared to WrestleMania 1. And also, I felt like Vince learned his lesson and kind of decided, yeah, maybe I shouldn't broadcast from like 2 or 3 separate buildings. Obviously, he wouldn't learn his lesson for the Raw 25 Years show, but we'll ignore that for now. But yeah, thank you guys for watching this review. I hope you have enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Comment down below what you thought of WrestleMania 2 if you've watched it and you want to see more from me. Hit that subscribe button. You'd be glad you did. Twitter and Instagram is at JackoManLol31 if you want to check me out there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm out in 3, 2, 1.